Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for joining. So, you're thinking about being a chief of staff? This is where we talk about all things chief of staff. Well, maybe not all things, but I try to cover as many things as possible. My name is Lee Felton, and as many of you know, I've been a chief of staff for over 20 years. And so this is something that is very, very close and special to my heart, especially as people are really getting to know this role. This role is, hitting the industry, and I'm getting a lot of individuals that are considering hiring a chief of staff or actually considering to be a chief of staff themselves. I'm getting a lot of individuals who are wanting to find out more about the chief of staff role, this role that literally will make your executive spectacular and shine, right? Well, today I have a just an amazing guest. We're talking about a number of things, in around the chief of staff role, including activism. I know I've had a lot of chief of staffs who have joined this podcast who also not just work in corporate or tech, but you're also in nonprofits and other sectors. And so I thought it would be good to mix it up a little bit. But first, anyone that has joined this podcast knows that I like to start with hello. As I always say, I like to engage in dialogue and conversation. And except for when I invite guests on, we're able to have that conversation. I don't know that you're out there. I don't know who I'm speaking with. And I love to have a conversation with the individuals who are joining and who've taken the time to even, take 30 minutes out of their day to join and talk with me. So, hello. Hello to you. If you are out there, say hello to me. I would love to know where you're joining from. Do I have my Arizona folks in the house? What about my UK folks? I know I always appreciate the individuals from Europe who join on their Friday, their late Friday afternoon, who take the time to join me. So would love to just see you and say hello. And while you are saying hello, I wanted to quickly go over before we move on. I wanted to quickly go over. Oh my gosh! Now I don't. What time is it in India? I don't even. It shows up as LinkedIn user. When it publishes, your name will actually be there, but it shows up as LinkedIn user. I know India is a quite different time zone. So I don't know if it's very, very early or very, very late. Hi Cynthia, Mercer Island, and Michelle from New Jersey, LinkedIn user, Phoenix, Argentina, Martin. I'm not sure if I've seen you on here before. I would have remembered Argentina. LinkedIn user from Florida, Kim from Houston. And then we have Washington, D.C. I love the variety because we get to learn from each other. As many of you know, I call myself not too late, dear. Okay, thank you. I hope not. Hi from Boston, Massachusetts. I call myself a person that experiences many, many different places. And so you'll see that I host this podcast. Sometimes I'm in Woodinville, Washington. Sometimes I'm in Meridian, Mississippi, because those are places. And sometimes you will see coming up, I'll be in Aalborg, Denmark, because those are places that I call home in my heart. And I believe that when we get experiences from many, many different places, that it opens up your perspective. It opens up what you're able to see, what you're able to think, how you're able to understand and embrace other people. And that right there is a significant aspect of the chief of staff role, that you're thinking beyond what's immediately in front of you and who you are and what's right for you, but that you're really putting yourself out there to say, okay, if I'm scheduling, whatever it is that I'm doing, I have to take into consideration this huge, for most organizations, this global organization and team that I am here representing in helping to be successful. So hello to everybody, New York and Texas, more New York. So I had asked a question. We're not going to get into it too much, but I had asked a question. My survey this week on LinkedIn, if you didn't get a chance to answer it, I would love to see your answer. But my survey on LinkedIn this week was how many pages should a professional resume be to really demonstrate your experience? And I was, okay, I will be completely honest with you here. I was expecting like 95% of everybody to check 2 pages. I have heard and have lived 2 pages for a professional resume like my entire life. And it's one of those things, and it's just like I was just talking about, it's about perspective. It's one of those things where just because it's right for you, you automatically think that that's what's right for everybody else. I was pleasantly surprised to see many people answer 1 page because that's what's right for some. There was the majority, about 75%, that answered 2 pages, which, like I said, I expected. But then you had people answering 3 pages. That blew me. I was like, 3-page resume. I'm trying to imagine that. But that's what's right for them. Then you had even more people than the 3-pagers. You had even more people say as many pages as you need. That meant something. That meant something. It's like those people are like, don't confine yourself. Do what you want to do. And just so you know, even in that category, there are people that don't have traditional resumes, that don't have a paper resume. They have a presentation and experience of who they are. So yes, that opened up my thinking in terms of even the way that I have always thought about being professional. It's like, no, there is no right one way of being professional. So thank you so much for everybody who took the time to answer my survey. Let's get into the meat of this conversation because, as we know, time goes by quickly when we're in So You're Thinking About Being a Chief of Staff. I would like to bring onto the stage a very special person, and not just special to me, but I think very special to a lot of people in society because she's just amazing. She really is. She is the director of inclusion and accessibility of global events at Microsoft. And the work that she does, well, instead of me telling you about the work that she does, Alexia Claiborne. Alexia, welcome to the stage.
Well, thank you, beautiful. I appreciate it so much. Your energy just gives me so much light. So I'm soaking all this in. I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you so much. So, like I was just saying, I think the work that you do, I'm old school Microsoft. So it's not just about that you do for Microsoft, but you actually do the work for communities. And so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I've always been who I am and gotten into some good trouble. And I think there's a lot of value to that. For sure. And equally, there's a lot of value to being able to see the reality of the way things are, to have experience in the way things are, and a vision of how things can be. So the work that I do, the work I've always been leading up to do, is systems change work. And it's I tell you, it can be a little hard. It can be a lot hard sometimes, and that's okay to acknowledge. And I am so thankful that we are at a place where we can just say that. It's 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 so empowering to be able to use your passion, your skills to I think intersects with purpose to help support change. I think a lot of us that I come in contact with want to leave things better and also benefit. And so just a little bit, just yeah.
No worries. I can see your passion, even more than energy. It's like there's a passion. I can tell that you feel like there's a reason that you're here, and there's a difference that you want to make. Now, for people who aren't familiar with system change, because you might be speaking to a lot of people, like a lot of chief of staff. When we think about system change, we're thinking about processes, we're thinking about tools, we're thinking about templates. So what exactly do you mean by system change?
Well, that is a very fair question. And for me, when I think of systems change, I think of the infrastructure that is around all of us in our day to day, that we have had typically no say of how things show up. And, whether that be from transportation to education to government to, insert any infrastructure, I think. Reality of what a society needs to function. And the reality is that we all have an opportunity to be more in control of what our infrastructure looks like. There is, I think, no surprise that today a lot of folks are raising their hand and saying, wait a minute, I'm not so sure this feels right, the way things are. So what can we do to show up to make it feel better and also get some wins? Like, let's just, let's take a moment to enjoy the present, the moment that we're
Right.
in. And I think that's powerful too. So that's all a piece of the systems change definition for me. It's infrastructure based, but it's also recognizing how, while you are trying to enhance what is the day to day for so many people, you get some joy in it.
And so you are in marketing, is that correct?
That's correct.
But I think if people looked you up on LinkedIn, Alexia Claiborne, they will see JD.
That's correct. That for folks who aren't familiar is a Juris Doctor. So I do have a legal background, and that's never done me anything but good. Let me tell you, to understand another part of the system and infrastructure that is, the legal system here has been very helpful in whatever I've done, and also just my day to day.
Oh gosh, believe me, as most people who have pinged me know, I'm in jury duty right now, which I'm very, very proud of. I am. It's like I wanted to serve my country, and I got selected for jury duty. So it's like that's just really cool. But the reason I brought up your JD is because there's lots of people who contact me who are, I've been a, you name it. There's COOs who've contacted me. There's people who've been in marketing. There's people who've been in operations or finance, or even executive assistants who contact me. And, they say, I've been doing this, but I'm so interested in the chief of staff role. Is it too late? Is it too late to change up? And I think that you seem to be a shining example of, it is okay to find who you are and to go after what is leading you and what is your passion and what is going to drive you.
100%. That's a mic drop moment. Look, next question. No, right. That was perfectly said. The one thing that I will say, that I'm so excited to talk about this playbook that, is really driven by the 3 E's of business innovation, which are engagement, experience, and expansion. But from a chief of staff lens, because yes, there are many overlaps in the way I just naturally, I believe, think, that a lot of chief of staffs think, very structure based. We're kind of, even just from a project management discipline, program management, which I have a lot of experience and expertise in. I again see that as similar to the chief of staff. I think skill set. Certainly one is on the change side, and the other is mostly centered on kind of rhythm of business operation. Yet the same skills that are needed for each discipline, are pretty much very diverse. And you have to learn how to communicate. You have to learn how to, engage, and certainly, plan, et cetera, et cetera. So
it's experience, engage, excite. What were the 3 E's?
Yeah, it's engage, experience, and expand.
Expand.
Yes.
Okay. You mind telling us, I mean, if people wanted to follow, and I know that you said that there's a full playbook around this, but if people even just wanted to familiarize themselves with, how do you use those 3 E's? Engage, experience, and expand. How do you use
Correct.
those 3 E's?
Yes. So you know what I'm gonna do, and I know we got 15 minutes here, so I'm gonna try to be very quick with giving a little initial context as to what is my playbook, anyways, right? So we started off the conversation talking about systems change work. We also, I think most of us here who have lived long enough, right, and that's just the reality of what it is as adults. We typically have understood that people do value knowing what is next, knowing how they're going to show up. And so when you're saying, raising your hand, hey, there's a new, from a business perspective, there's a new product that, we're pushing, and we want folks to get on board with it. Usually a new product is going to be very rarely, I think, something that folks have never heard of. It's going to be something familiar, something that, if it's really innovative, like AI, right, and machine
Right.
learning.
And are you talking about folks inside of a company, or are you talking about the general public?
I'm talking about the general public, and I'm
Okay.
using that as the example because, even something as magnificent and huge as AI, machine learning, it still has a lot of familiarity to it with, folks that are actually driving that change and kind of just the relationships, etc. And we've been building up to that. So that is a little less scary. And when it comes to the work that I'm doing, I am sharing that while this is net new and how we see process of engaging with customers, with future employees, with anyone that we are trying to empower and partner with, when we're thinking of that, we are saying we must change how we actually engage. We must change how we experience those relationships, and we then get, as a result, opportunity to expand. But it's not as scary as I think some may see. But the beautiful part, and I will pause after this, is this playbook that we're going to talk about is community engagement centric. It is something that folks who value structure,
Mhm.
people who like people, and if you want to like people, and who like to make money moves. And money moves does not have to mean at the end of the day that the intent is, self-serving. It can be self-serving, but it can also be empowering via resources. But if you like these things and you're okay with learning about how something could change for everyone's benefit, then let's go.
Yeah, no, and let's go, because I would say anyone interested in the chief of staff role, everybody gets different benefits, different values out of it. Whether I always tell people to think about what your values are. What is it that you value the most? And make sure that that's what you are, when you're negotiating or when you're, looking at this role, that that's what you are getting out of it. For me, I am a server. I like service. I really do. I like helping an organization, an executive be successful. That empowers me. It gives me energy. And so, I think that the things that you're talking about is that there is something of value that each of these individuals, they can, there's a drive that they can find for themselves,
Yes.
but that it can be fulfilled through this type of work, or this type of structure that you're talking about. So why don't you tell us more about the playbook?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I sit in the marketing organization at Microsoft, and from an events perspective, and that's another E, right? It was really great opportunity to engage, experience, and expand. Right? We are the one of the company's largest platforms to talk about products, services, innovation. So, naturally speaking, that platform offers us opportunity to innovate and to guide, as well as learn. So what we understood is, with AI being as critical to the future of success for so many of us, that we need to ensure that the system empowers everybody, right? If you don't have network from an infrastructure standpoint, technology, access, you're not going to be able to benefit from AI. And there's others who don't have access and opportunity as well to even start to learn how AI can improve their lives, right? When done ethically. And so what we're saying is, as Microsoft's mission is to empower everyone, and I know a lot of folks listening have that same shared vision to empower everyone, that there is opportunity to reach the billions of people, the masses who have not yet been brought into the system in the ways that we experience day to day from a business standpoint. It is opportunity through 3 steps to do that. And as I'm going through each step, I will share what the role of the chief of staff can be, because what has been so apparent in all of this is that if you do not have executives on board with this level of innovation and change and how we actually approach interactions with others, then you're not going to be successful. And that is where number one opportunity is for the chief of staff, who, I mean, we talk about superstars and roles. My gosh, you have got to be a superstar to do all the beautiful things you do day to day. You know, so I'm confident y'all can do this. Okay, number one, access and opportunity. Folks, I've heard from the nonprofit to the education to certainly the for-profit space, et cetera, that access and opportunity to how folks connect and engage with current customers, future customers, other partners, et cetera, is usually through events. Okay. And events have typically, especially at larger companies, been an opportunity for those who are already at the proverbial table, who already have access from Fortune 500 companies, top revenue, to join, to network, which is so critical to engaging, to experiencing, and talking opportunity to expand. And, you know, through these interactions and moments, the future of technology, the future of business, insert whatever, you know, vertical or industry you're in, right, the future of that happens. And you may see the results 10 years from now, but it's happening in that space. So access, let's give access to more folks who matter, who have historically been left out of the conversation, who've been underrepresented, but who represent vast influence in their groups that are targeted, you know, demographics for your business. So let me just stop there and see if there's, I can't see the chat, but if there's any questions.
Okay, and I'm watching the chat. I'm watching the chat. And so Leonida just joined us from Illinois. So thanks to have you here, Leonida. So access and opportunity. And unfortunately, I wish that I could post in the chat, but for whatever reason, the way this event works, I can't actually post in the chat. So access and opportunity. I think, you know, even as I think about the chief of staff role, even as you are constructing your role, the very first thing, and I love that that's the very first thing in your playbook, the very first thing that I think about, as well as that access and opportunity, as you're thinking about who needs to be involved, you know, how do we make sure that we're disseminating the right level of information at the right time to the right people? I mean, I love that structure of thinking about access and opportunity first. And that really helps to set a lot of guidelines, just like you said, for, you know, as you're thinking about even system change, you're thinking about organizational change, you're thinking about, you know, really impacting the individuals around you, who has access and that opportunity to help you and to make a difference. That's a great approach as the number one phase for how you're thinking about this. So I'm just going to quickly point out, I don't have access to IM. Otherwise, I would put these notes in the IM window. But if you have any questions as Alexia is talking, please put them in the IM window. We are like a minute ahead of you, or 5 seconds or 20 seconds ahead of you. And so we'll get your questions, you know, a little later. But please, if you have questions or if you have thoughts or if something resonates with you, please communicate with us through the IM window so we can make sure that we get your questions answered. Okay, so access opportunity. What's number 2?
Yes, and just a quick clarifying point, equitable access. You're going to have folks who don't historically have the same
Okay.
funding,
Equitable
right, to
access.
join you in your spaces if you're focusing on this playbook from an events perspective. But all up, absolutely. If you've never engaged and been in proximity with targeted demographics, if you are applying the same methods of communication and vehicles and reaching and outreach, and you are not going to be successful, yet you're going to likely wonder, well, number one, this targeted demographic is not interested, but the learning here is you just haven't learned how to reach them, and there may not be any established trust there. So all of these opportunities open up when you are driving this playbook. So number two is the way we have envisioned this is put your money where your mouth is, double down, and show representation of those that you're bringing into the space. Show representation that allows them a platform and a voice to actually share who they are, why they are involved in this conversation and considering partnership. And from an events perspective, that really boils down to putting them on the global screen. We've done this with some key partners we've worked with as we were modeling this second stage. We worked with the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation, led by Deborah Watts. We've worked with the Withers Art Collection, led by Rosalind Withers. And we've worked with the Medgar and Murray Evers Institute, led by Rena Evers. And I say all of those things because they represent powerful influence and community, community, I think, support. They've been, through their families, empowered as a result of decades and generations of work to better, right, to afford justice and many other factors that we all seek. That right there is a firm, I think, definition of some folks that, from a community ecosystem, you can bring into your fold. And inside of a company, who are those folks who, may not have the traditional portfolio of, an executive to what the current reality considers. But like you said, your resume can be extremely, your resume can be extremely powerful, even if you have experience, right? And you don't have maybe some of the other factors that people would consider. So you double down, put them on the big screen. And as a result, those people become your allies. Those people become your partners to shepherd in whatever message you are trying to market.
So what was the number two? Exposure, or what was the
representation? Number
representation. Representation. Yes. So access to opportunity, representation, and the way you see representation is not here, let me listen to you and then I'll go present it, but it's like, let the voice of the individuals that you are trying to represent, let them speak for themselves.
Absolutely. Wow. It's mind-blowing, right? But it's not, when you put yourself into those shoes, right? Because those of us at the executive level today, in certainly the business space, we tend to understand the power of letting leaders speak, right? But it doesn't translate sometimes. So there's that. And then
and if we could pause there, just because this one right here, to me, it hits home very closely to the chief of staff role, because there's so many things that as a chief of staff, like I said, even events, I know as a chief of staff, I've had to lead our all organization events, whether that's through facilitation, whether that's through orchestration, and really lining up what is it that the audience needs to understand, needs to learn, needs to hear for. And that was a powerful word for me, representation, because we're always trying to balance, okay, we have our executive, we have, members of the leadership team. Okay, so we have their direct reports, but it's like, let's think broader than that. What is the message we're trying to get across? And is it our SLT, really the ones that can get that message across? Or maybe there's somebody we can partner them with that really is living it. And so let's think about that more than just saying, let's get our executives on stage. I love that. I love that from a chief of staff perspective. What's our number three? I know we're almost out of time, but give me the number three.
Number three is co-creating co-creating with decision makers, those same folks you brought on from phase 1, 2. So the first step, the second step, to the third step. And what you get in return from that, co-creating partnership opportunities, you get one key thing, which is, I feel, what all of this is about. It's about, understanding humans better. It's about relationship building, and that loyalty, that opportunity to fully partner when someone feels seen and heard is critical. You have to engage with them in order to develop partnerships. So typically, and this will be the last piece I say, when it comes to that co-creation, you have to be in proximity with those in their shared, and in spaces that are meaningful to them, and not just have those people come to spaces that are meaningful to you. This is why events can be so critical to that, because if you have those same decision makers showing up in spaces with these new potential partners, and if you look at it from a chief of staff role internally, if you have these, executives, senior executives at that, showing up to a community event, or, something that is meaningful to a mass, amount of people in the company, wow, just wow.
Co-creation. I love it. Access, opportunity, representation, co-creation. I mean, I definitely see without a shadow of a doubt how I could apply that in the chief of staff space, in general, whether that's looking at my leadership team, or whether that's looking at the organization, or whether that's looking at how we service our customers and partners. I think that is a beautiful playbook. So if people wanted to learn more, Alexia, should they reach out to you, or what should people do if this is if they want to get a copy of this playbook?
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Alexia Claiborne. That's Alexia Claiborne, Clayborne, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Let's continue the conversation. There's so much more to share, but ultimately we hope that this opens up opportunity for everyone to see the benefit of what is and will be the future, and that is community, relationships, and how you engage. Thank
I
you.
love it so much. Thank you so much for joining us, Alexia. So we are out of time, and I know we normally get to a few questions, specifically about the chief of staff role, but I think this, to me, this was so educational to hear from Alexia and think about all of the steps in terms of how she approaches that system change and that system evolution. And so it's definitely something that we can think about, how we approach that within our own organization. So if I did not get to, and I didn't get to any questions today, but if I didn't get to a question that you were burning to ask today, please post it on this podcast link in LinkedIn, and I will, take some time over the weekend and answer any questions that you all ask. So let me just say, have a beautiful, beautiful day. Have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. Thank you so much, Alexia Claiborne, for joining us and sharing your wisdom. And I hope you all stay positive and blessed. Take care until next time. Bye.